Welcome, folks, to Firm. Mark Merrill here. It's time for real journalism. Facts. And now. Here's our choice, folks, for primary news journalism in a 21st century world of lies, threats, and violence to suppress truth, facts, and common sense to U.S. citizens and the rest of the free world, if you don't mind. The Epoch Times, as you see one of the publications listed here, is compiled of newspapers, TV, and digital publications, not just here in the United States, but around the world. Has been since the year 2000. And Judicial Watch, represented by Tom Fitton down here, who protects our First Amendment with his staff of trial lawyers for almost 30 years now, along with our rights and freedoms under the Bill of Rights and the Constitution. Now, our first information segment, folks, is going to be from the Epoch Times. We'll tell you a little bit more about that. According to an article by the Epoch Times, which was recently published by Caden Pearson, November 7th, they reported that a judge has struck down a federal rule protecting illegal immigrants married to U.S. citizens. Isn't that lovely? Just another narrative and another mandate or executive order by Joe Biden, or maybe even Kamala Harris at this point. But the federal judge ruled that Department of Homeland Security lacks the authority to offer parole in place, it's called, to illegal immigrant spouses of U.S. citizens. A Texas federal judge struck down the Department of Homeland Security rule that allows illegal immigrant spouses of U.S. citizens to apply for residency. The ruling sets aside a parole in place process announced in August of this year, 2024, that would have meant the illegal immigration spouses of U.S. citizens could apply for legal status and temporarily remain in the United States. And if approved, they could then pursue a green card and eventually U.S. citizenship if they met certain eligibility criteria. But that information included having lived in the United States continuously for at least 10 years and having no disqualifying criminal history and being married to a U.S. citizen by June 17th. Nice try, idiots. In August, DHS said the government was trying to keep families together by granting parole in place on a case-by-case basis to eligible illegal immigrants, which they said would be a public benefit of promoting unity and stability of families. Oh, gee, never mind. Coerce Democratic votes in future elections? And to hell with the Republicans? Or independents, or anyone else for that matter? I don't think so. It doesn't work that way under federal law. Oh, but we keep forgetting, don't we, folks, that the deflectocrats, as we always call them, are constantly trying to ignore the Constitution, the Articles of Law, the Bill of Rights, the Civil Rights Act, especially immigration laws, aren't they? Shortly after the rule was announced, though, 16 states led by Texas filed the lawsuit arguing that the program would encourage illegal immigration and increase financial burdens on states through health care and law enforcement costs. And in late August, District Judge U.S., meaning Federal District Judge J. Campbell Barker, was appointed by President-elect Donald Trump during his first term, halted the rule pending the outcome of the case. In the final decision, Barker wrote that the DHS lacks authority to grant parole in place to illegal immigrants or to deem parole in place as used there to be parole into the United States. His judgment invalidated the agency's action, DHS, under Biden, published on August 20th in the Federal Register, opening applications for this pathway. Barker's final judgment effectively ends that parole program, stating that DHS's authority does not extend to the interpretation of parole outlined by the policy. Gee, that kind of covers it, doesn't it, folks? If you ask me. Sounds plain and simple. But, folks, what it is just one of thousands of news stories published daily and updated consistently by Epoch Times staff writers, trusted consultants, and hundreds of vetted, dedicated, and respected contributors. Plus, the dedicated 30-plus year staff of trial lawyers at, yes, indeedy, we've had him in our files a long time, folks. Tom Fitton, president, founder of JudicialWatch.org. Mr. Fitton's staff, including himself, guard the constitutional laws as previously mentioned in articles. You should consider to be a subscriber to both organizations, and we'll give you links for those. Now, upcoming on a second one here, folks, involving Judicial Watch. This one posted more recently, November 27th, 2024, after releasing hundreds of alien criminals. A state passes a law to honor ICE detainers. Thankfully, some positive news involving the national epidemic of local governments that protect criminal aliens from federal authorities. Legislators in North Carolina overrode the veto of the state's Democratic governor to pass a bill that requires all local law enforcement agencies to cooperate with Immigration and Customs Enforcement, ICE, period. Under a program known as 287G, local authorities are supposed to notify ICE of jail inmates in the country illegally, enhancing the safety and security of communities by creating partnerships with state and local police to identify and deport dangerous migrants amenable to removal from the United States. But unfortunately, folks, as a lot of us know, for a lot of Americans nationwide, including those of us in the state of Maine here, a big border state, a growing number of our blue governors and municipalities shield even the most violent of illegal immigrants by enacting sanctuary laws that prohibit public employees, including police, from cooperating with the federal authorities, especially ICE. Guess what, though? As of May 2024, folks, ICE has 287G agreements with 135 law enforcement agencies in 27 states, and it's growing. According to the latest figures, 60 of the pacts are designed to identify and process removal of non-citizens with criminal or pending criminal charges who have been arrested by local police. In agreements with 75 local agencies, ICE trains, certifies, and authorizes officers to serve and execute administrative warrants on non-citizens in their jail. Most cooperating agencies are in Florida and Texas, though local police in other states, like Wisconsin and Georgia, also participate in the federal partnership. That's about as far as we get in these particular ones, folks. Good job, Mr. Fitton. Now we have another one here, folks, that we're going to show you right off. We certainly hope you will understand it. As you can see, the migrations keep going despite the demands of the Biden and Harris administration. Of course, we don't ever know where Joe is these days. I'm getting his ice cream, and then he comes back to the Delaware home Maybe the basement for all we know. Getting cold out there, you know, it is November. So to let you know, folks, what we have before you here is now this one. You can see part of it currently. We're going to bring it front and center right off the bat here so you can get a better look at it. It's some ancient history. Well, I can really call it ancient history. It's more history that we don't want to relive ever again in this country. But you can understand why. Let's see if we can get that a little bit less glary for us, folks. You remember Spygate, don't you, ladies and gentlemen? Of course. Some of the criminals there that were part of it. No prosecutions. Nope. Nothing's happened to these people. Should have. President Trump, once he was in office, though, at least did one smart thing. At least he had the time before they started prosecuting him and blaming him in Russiagate. That's part of this right here. We're going to give you a little brief rundown on that, too, folks. At least he fired James Comey, who lied before Congress about Hillary Clinton and her scrubbed or washed emails, you may recall. So, here goes nothing, folks, and I mean nothing. Especially these people right here who need to be, all of them, in jail. This publication you see before you, folks, is by the staff and chief operating officers of the Epoch Times. It's about the real Spygate, Volume 2, how the Obama administration conspired against Donald Trump's 2016 presidential campaign. Just to give all Americans a brief refresher course or outline, Spygate will likely be remembered as the biggest political scandal in modern U.S. history. Obama administration officials, like Secretary of State Clinton, CIA Director John Brennan, and Director of National Intelligence James Clapper here on the end, actively colluded with Ms. Clinton's 2016 presidential campaign and foreign governments to affect the outcome of that election. Unofficial intelligence, spy traps, and a politically funded dossier were used to launch a counterintelligence investigation and surveil the campaign of the candidate for the Republicans, Donald Trump, at the time. Efforts intensified following the election through the use of coordinated leaks and the ongoing creation of false narratives in the mass media. Epoch Times journalists and staff writers explored the connections of Spygate. And believe me, folks, there's a ton of information in a magazine publication that was released by Epoch Times way back. Moving back to our original information here, folks, as we wrap up our program here. You see the picture of immigrants, illegals, crossing here. It's going to stop. Mr. Trump's new appointed border chief, Tom Homan. Pictures like this better stop. So we don't have to keep looking at these damn things and say, and from the left-wing nasty media, border crisis? What crisis? There's the big criminals right here. Triggers of violence. Enemies of the state. Guess what else? Also free speech. That's who they are. That includes Fox too, by the way, folks. See, the people behind you, folks, behind this poster, folks, Obama Hillary, Clapper, Brennan, and all the people who worked underneath them all got blood on their hands. It's time this nonsense stopped and we put people in jail. Too bad we can't bring back the death penalty. Seems we'd have a lot of people lined up for that. It'd be great if we could just do that, couldn't we? Now, another organization we have here, folks, is on a lighter note and a more pertinent note, is, of course, Samaritan's Purse from Franklin Graham's organization. And recently, he made a presentation as for an update. So most Americans can understand how the recovery efforts are going down there in the Carolinas, Georgia, and other southern states that were affected by the hurricanes. At the moment, 358 Samaritan's Purse flights have taken place, bringing in 3,800 generators, 5,700 heaters, along with 29,500 volunteers. For more information, folks, we'll give you a link to Samaritan's Purse so you can donate, or if you wish, you certainly can contact a representative with Samaritan's Purse as to how you can volunteer to help. In the meantime, ladies and gentlemen, pray for our country as we try to heal from the monstrosity of our media. Donald Trump continues to have his people, his new people, assigned to be approved, vetted, if you will, through Congress. But stay tuned to Firm for more information and always for any podcast you'd like to check out at rumble.com/fairnessmedia1. Also follow us on YouTube, Twitter, and 24 hours a day, 7 days a week at fairnessinreportingmedia@gmail.com, fairnessinreportingmedia@gmail.com. Ladies and gentlemen, we are always all about, right here behind me, truth, facts, reality, and common sense. In the meantime, stay safe during our holiday seasons, and peace as always to everyone.